And walking us through this all day.
Anytime.
All right, thanks a lot. I want to bring back in the panel Steve Rogers. Apparently, the suspect is known to the police, at least Matthew Verderosa, who's the D.C., the Capitol Hill police chief on the job for a week, admitted as much, didn't want to go into details, single person, frequent the grounds before. We know this person committed a criminal act before, in fact, assaulted a police officer while being arrested for some outrageousness at the house. This is October 22nd, 2015. What does this say about the challenge, if you will, because those two brothers over in Brussels, they both had extensive police records. One actually shot at a police officer. And we see this over and over again where people who are in the system, so to speak, return again to rear their ugly heads.
Well, for law enforcement, every day is a challenge. But Charles, the police chief, kudos to him. You know, Sergeant Joe Friday used to say, just the facts, ma'am, just the facts. He gave us an excellent press conference. He told us exactly what we needed to know. He comforted the nation by saying this was not an act of terrorism. Now, the fact that we do have people running around that are mentally unstable, law enforcement knows about them. You just can't swoop up people off the street and bring them in. But in this case, the metal detectives work, and those two officers, their quick action saved a lot of lives. And, you know, I'm glad they took them alive, because now you might find what the motive was.
Rod, again, I think that's right. Matthew Verderosa, this is his first press conference. In fact, I had to tell him to move closer to the microphone. So you can see he was not accustomed to this part of the spotlight. Handled it very well, talked about the shelter being in place, being removed at 3:40. But I think some of the questions that people are going to have, or some of the questions that were asked immediately after this, is the way the center is set up. You can walk in there a decent amount and be inside of the Capitol Visitor Center before you encounter any metal detectors. And some are wondering, particularly after Brussels, with the new focus on soft targets, where the perimeters should be for these really hard zones, if you will, protection.
Right. Well, from the direction in which this guy walked into the visitor center today, and I actually was there, Charles, when we talked earlier, I was over on Capitol Hill. He actually made it inside the visitor center, but he didn't go too far inside the visitor center. I'd say about 25 to 30 feet on the inside. Now, one other thing that's very important, we have layered security measures around our Capitol building and all the other buildings in D.C. So this guy had to actually go past 2 layered security measures before he even got there. Now, the layered security measures on the outside does not consist of checking for weapons.
Right.
So that's going to be something that we're going to look at going forward. But I can also tell you that once you get on the inside, we have officers that are ready at a moment's notice to take action. And that's what these 2 officers did today. And there were about 10 to 12 officers in that immediate area where the shooting actually took place.
There's no doubt it was swift action. We held our breath, though, Tammy, waiting and waiting, because if we heard that this was any scent or hint of terrorism, it would have been a different story tonight.
Well, we're lucky. The police officers did have a great chance. They took him out, but if he had had a bomb, if he had something he could have thrown, we had so many tourists there. Remember, this is the day after Easter. The president is at the White House on the grounds. The Easter egg roll, thousands of people, hundreds of kids.
A lot of kids are out of school.
After the horrible Pakistan bombing with those Easter celebrations, the fact that he did get in so far when we at least should have had, if not forever, having an elevated security dynamic, but at least for this week with knowing what's going on. That's what concerns me. When we are in denial of our dynamic, this is one of those cases.
I think there's no doubt we got to go to a break, but there's no doubt that we'll reconfigure a lot of security measures.
I hope so.
There's no doubt.